The town of Whispering Pines was an idyllic haven. Nestled amidst a sprawling evergreen forest, it was a place where time seemed to stand still. Days were long and sun-drenched, the air thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Life moved at a slower pace here, its rhythm dictated by the changing seasons and the whispers of the wind through the trees. It was in this tranquil town that I found myself, drawn by its promise of peace and solitude. Little did I know that beneath the tranquil facade lay a secret, a darkness that whispered through the pines. The houses, with their wraparound porches and gently swaying swings, seemed to hold their breath, their secrets hidden behind closed shutters and drawn curtains. Even the laughter of children playing in the town square seemed to carry an undercurrent of unease, a subtle dissonance in the otherwise harmonious symphony of small-town life. As I settled into my new home, a quaint cottage on the outskirts of town, a sense of foreboding began to creep into my heart. A whisper of warning that something was amiss in this idyllic town of Whispering Pines. The whispers started subtly, like the rustling of leaves on a windless night. At first, I dismissed them as tricks of the mind, the product of an overactive imagination fueled by the solitude of my new surroundings. But the whispers persisted, growing louder with each passing day, weaving themselves into the fabric of my reality. They seemed to emanate from the depths of the forest, carried on the breeze that snaked its way through the trees and into my open windows. I would hear them in the dead of night, faint murmurs that danced on the periphery of my consciousness, pulling me from my slumber with a jolt. They spoke of ancient rituals and forgotten gods, of sacrifices made and pacts sworn beneath the watchful eyes of the pines. The townsfolk, too, seemed to be aware of the whispers, their faces etched with a mixture of apprehension and resignation. They spoke of them in hushed tones, their words laden with the weight of unspoken knowledge. It was as if they were privy to a secret, a truth that they dared not utter aloud. Their silence spoke volumes, fueling my curiosity and igniting within me a burning desire to uncover the truth that lay hidden beneath the surface of this seemingly peaceful town. My search for answers led me to the town library, a musty old building that smelled of aged paper and forgotten stories. I spent countless hours poring over dusty tomes and faded manuscripts, searching for any mention of the whispers that haunted my waking hours. It was there, in the dimly lit recesses of the library's archives, that I stumbled upon a book unlike any I had ever seen before. Bound in dark leather and adorned with strange symbols that seemed to writhe and shift before my eyes, it was a book that exuded an aura of power, both alluring and terrifying. The book, as I later learned, was known as the Book of Shadows. It was a chronicle of the town's history, a repository of secrets that had been passed down through generations. As I delved deeper into its pages, I was drawn into a world of ancient rituals and forgotten lore, a world where the line between reality and nightmare blurred. The book spoke of a dark entity that resided within the forest, a being of immense power that demanded tribute from those who dared to dwell within its domain. It was a chilling tale, one that sent shivers down my spine and left me with a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. As I pieced together the fragments of information gleaned from the Book of the Shadows and the hushed whispers of the townsfolk, a horrifying realization began to dawn on me. The disappearances that had plagued Whispering Pines for generations were not random acts of fate, but rather sacrifices made to appease the dark entity that lurked within the forest. The book spoke of a pact that had been made long ago, a deal struck between the town's founders and the ancient evil that resided within the woods. In exchange for protection and prosperity, the people of Whispering Pines vowed to offer up a blood sacrifice every year on the night of the summer solstice. It was a gruesome tradition, one that had been carried out in secret for generations. The victims were always outsiders, travelers passing through town or newcomers like myself who were drawn to the town's idyllic charm, unaware of the sinister undercurrents that flowed beneath the surface. The disappearances were always shrouded in mystery, the victims vanishing without a trace, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions and a lingering sense of dread. As the days grew shorter and the summer solstice approached, I knew that time was running out. I had to find a way to break the cycle of sacrifice, to free Whispering Pines from the grip of its ancient curse. Section 5. Unraveling the Past. Determined to unravel the secrets of Whispering Pines, I immersed myself in the town's history, scouring local archives, interviewing elderly residents, and piecing together fragments of forgotten lore. Each new piece of information I uncovered brought me closer to the truth, but also deeper into the web of darkness that ensnared the town. I learned of the town's founders, a group of settlers who had arrived centuries ago seeking refuge from persecution and a chance to start anew. They had stumbled upon the valley where Whispering Pines now stood, drawn by its beauty and the promise of fertile land. But the valley was not as peaceful as it seemed. The forest held a dark secret, an ancient entity that demanded tribute. Desperate to protect their newfound home, the settlers made a pact with the entity, offering up a blood sacrifice each year in exchange for safety and prosperity. Thus began the cycle of darkness that had haunted Whispering Pines for generations. Section 6. Echoes in the Woods. Following the whispers which seemed to intensify as the summer solstice drew near, I ventured deeper into the heart of the forest. The air grew heavy with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, the sunlight struggling to penetrate the dense canopy of leaves overhead. The further I walked, the more oppressive the atmosphere became, as if the very trees were closing in around me, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. I stumbled upon the ruins of an old stone altar half hidden amongst the trees. The air around it crackled with an unseen energy, sending shivers down my spine. It was here, in this secluded clearing, that the town's founders had made their pact with the dark entity. It was here that the annual sacrifices had been carried out, year after year for centuries. The silence of the forest was broken only by the sound of my own breathing and the relentless pounding of my heart. I could sense eyes upon me, watching my every move from the shadows. The whispers led me to a clearing bathed in moonlight, a circle of ancient trees standing sentinel around a moss-covered stone altar. The air crackled with an unseen energy, sending shivers down my spine. As I stepped into the clearing, the whispers intensified, swirling around me like a vortex of fear and dread. They spoke of the entity, its power and its hunger. They warned me to turn back, to flee while I still had the chance. But I was determined to break the cycle of darkness that had plagued Whispering Pines for far too long. The oppressive atmosphere of the clearing was almost suffocating, pressing down on me with the weight of centuries of fear and despair. The silence was shattered by the sound of chanting, low and guttural, emanating from the shadows that danced at the edge of the clearing. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my breath catching in my throat. The chanting grew louder, the words ancient and powerful, invoking the entity that resided within the heart of the forest. From the darkness beyond the ring of firelight emerged the townsfolk, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. They moved with an eerie synchronicity, their eyes blank and their expressions vacant, as if their bodies were mere vessels, their wills subverted by a force beyond their control. In their midst, held aloft by unseen hands, was a bound and gagged figure, the intended sacrifice. The entity was real. The whispers had not lied. Fear threatened to consume me, but I clung to the sliver of hope that remained. I had to believe that there was a way to break the curse, to save the intended victim and free the town from its ancient pact. But what could I, a mere outsider, do against a force so ancient, so deeply rooted in the very fabric of this place? The chanting reached a fever pitch as the townsfolk reached the altar. They moved with a practiced ease, their actions honed by centuries of tradition. The air crackled with anticipation, with the palpable sense of a power about to be unleashed. I knew I had to act, but what could I do? The entity, whatever it was, clearly held sway over these people. To interfere directly would be folly, but could I reason with them? Could I appeal to whatever humanity remained within their entranced forms? As the ritual reached its climax, I understood. The townsfolk weren't simply enchanted, they were complicit. They believed that this sacrifice was the price of their continued existence, their protection from the entity that ruled the woods. They chose to perpetuate this cycle of darkness, silencing their own conscience in the name of survival. And in that moment, I realized the true horror of Whispering Pines. It was not a town held captive by an ancient evil, but a town that had willingly embraced the darkness as its own. The chanting ceased abruptly. The townsfolk turned their vacant eyes towards me, their silence more unnerving than any sound they could have uttered. I was an outsider, an interloper, who had stumbled upon their dark secret. The fate of the intended sacrifice now hung in the balance, along with my own. I had come to Whispering Pines seeking peace, solace from the chaos of the outside world. Instead, I had found a darkness more profound than any I could have imagined. The townsfolk parted slightly, their gazes unwavering, and I understood my presence had disrupted the ritual, thrown their carefully constructed world into disarray. The entity, angered by this interruption, demanded a new offering. I had become the sacrifice. As they advanced towards me, their faces illuminated by the flickering firelight, I knew that there would be no escape from Whispering Pines. I had become a part of its dark history, another soul claimed by the whispers in the pines.